Hey there. So I am going to talk to Michelle. Michelle is one of the folks in the community here that posted, and it really touched me because here, she's a professional in terms of she's been a therapist, she's done these things, and she shared about her son passing. And he was 15 when he was killed in a car accident. And she shared about it so openly and so lovingly, and obviously in personal, I want to say turmoil about it, but that's not the right word. I'm sure she would just say unresolved. Let me put it that way. Obviously unresolved, right? So I'm going to, and I promised her in a note to her on the feed, I said, you know what, I'm going to do a video on this because I had an experience years ago where a woman came to me and her dead son came through. And this was, 20 years ago when I was reading cards at my dining room table. So this is a long time ago. I don't do these types of readings anymore, and I could talk about that later. But anyway, I was really starting to read more. I was getting kind of popular in Los Angeles at the time, and it was all word of mouth. People would come to me, and I had this one girl come to me, and I talked about her brother, and then another girl came, and I talked about her dead brother. And I didn't put this together, by the way. It was like boom, boom, and then this woman comes in, and she sits down, and she just, when I say come in, people had to make an appointment with me. But when people made appointments, I asked them not to tell me anything. I don't want to know anything. Now, this was before we had Google and we could look people up, right? So I didn't know anything about these people. I just knew who recommended them, right? Who referred them, because it was word of mouth, and that they knew what I charged, and that was it. So, because I wanted them to know. And anyway, so they came. So this woman came to my house. I was living in Santa Monica at the time. And she sat down, and I remember, used to record with cassettes. I put the cassette on, and all of a sudden it was like this feeling I had. And I saw in my mind's eye, like this young man, completely bloody. I mean, it was just like, and I went, oh, no, I'm not looking at that. That freaks me out. I pass out at the sight of my own blood. You have to go away. You cannot appear to me like that. And she looked at me and she said, what? And I said, well, I'm seeing this young man standing right here, and I see a red car, and he's bloody. And she just went ashen, and she said, I said, don't tell me anything, please, yet. Because sometimes people want to tell you something, and it's like, I need to just get the message in. And so I said, okay, so did your son die in a car accident? He's saying he wrapped his car around a tree. And she, starts crying, and I just kind of shoved the tissues over to her side of the table. Because one of the things for me when I'm doing a reading, and when I used to do them, I don't get into the emotional experience of my client. I stay in the emotional experience of the intuition so that I can just tell them what I see and hear. And I can feel this young man right here in his energy as clear right now as I did 20 something years ago. And he started telling me, and he said to her, listen, and he was just describing this, and he said, listen, I just want you to know, Mom, that, we always had fights. It wasn't a big deal. It wasn't like I didn't love you. I was just pissed at you. And he, basically got in his car, and he said, I wasn't paying attention. And in those days we had the cassette tapes, and he said, I wasn't paying attention, and the car just, he said it got out of control, and he said, I couldn't get the cassette in to work. And that's what happened. And she later confirmed that they found a cassette on the floor, and they thought he may have been trying to put it into the machine. So what happened and I'm just going to Michele, just to make the point, he was, she was just torn up. This is a woman. And I said, I'm really sorry. I said, this is your son. And she nodded. And I said, are you okay? And she just kind of, she was like, in shock. And I said, okay, so there's a couple things that he's saying to me. He's saying, like, you have like some kind of shrine on your mantle to him, like soccer and I was like on footballs or something. And she, I said, so was he really into sport? He's like telling me he was really into sports, and she nodded. And he said, then it was really interesting because this is hard. When somebody has like, and I said, he's really kind of like outspoken, and that she laughed. I said, so I'm just going to tell you what I hear. And he basically said, Mom, knock it off. He basically said to her, you know what? I only had 25 years. That was my time. That was the time I was allotted. And he said, you're ignoring my sisters. You and Dad are about, she and her husband were about to split. Their marriage was really just in shambles. And he said, and you never finished your degree. What are you doing? And he said, if I'd have known that that's what this would have done, I never would have come. And he said, the truth is, I was only here for that time, and I'm going to see you soon. And then I like looked at her and I went, not that soon, and he was like, no, not that soon. And I said, but he was basically saying that, he said, look, I love you. That's never going to change. And it was really interesting because it was the first moment this woman's shoulders dropped, and she just nodded. And he said, and I said, I was just relaying what he was saying to me. And I said, he really loves you so, so much. And he's saying, go home and put those things away, because I don't want you to spend your life missing me. I want you to do what you're supposed to do. And I remember that feeling. And I think what really I took away from it, Michele, was that how he had said, this was my time to love you and to be with you. I didn't have more time. And I still chose to come to you, even though this span of time was my time. And I thought, wow, it impacted me so greatly. And I really felt honored to be a part of that, because I really understood that there's a sense of desperation sometimes on the other side too, because they want to reach over and just like shake us, or kind of go, live, live, live. I'll be here. Like, to them, 1 second is our 50 years, And so when we talk about the afterlife, that's what that is. However, when we hold on to them in a funny way, it's like, and there's nothing wrong with our holding on to an experience or what have you. I think what he was saying and what I learned was that you have a choice. You can honor that life, or you can live in the loss of that life. And when I say this to you, I want to be extremely clear as I say that. I'm not shaming anybody. That's not my MO. In fact, that thought came to me years later, and I'll come back to this reading in a second. It came to me years later when my father died, and my father and I were very close. I was one of the lucky ones. I had a great dad, and like Shanann did, actually. And she still does. But my father, after he died, I was an only child. And so I just had that profound loneliness. And I had to go and clean up his apartment and get everything together. And at the time, he lived in New York City. I lived in Los Angeles. So I was there for a number of weeks, cleaning everything up, burying him in Arlington. There was a lot to that. But the point I'm making is that I remember the day I got on the plane to go home. And I remember sitting in the seat. It was an aisle seat. And I remember no one sat next to me. And I remember this feeling when the plane took off. And I thought, I really have a choice here. I can take off and honor the life my father left, or I can sink into despair, let everything go, and literally live off the state, like literally just crumble into myself. And I recognized in some ways that was the power that that boy coming forward in that reading had given to me, that he had given me a message that on the other side, our loved ones, they provide in some ways a purpose for us. They provide for us the doorway through our pain into service. And I talk about this a lot in some of the work I do, because I do a lot of teaching on chakra wisdom and all that kind of stuff. But the thing that I talk about is that it's our wounding that brings about our purpose. And one of the things I want to really honor for you, Michele, and with you, is that, this is a very, very painful, profound loss. I mean, I can't pretend to know what you're going through. Okay. I really don't. I think what I'm trying to share with you, and the other side of it is, as that reading finished, she leaned back and he said goodbye at a certain point, because when they can't stay that long, they can't talk that long, because for us, the humans, we can't maintain that energy for a long time. She leaned back and she looked at me and she said, wow, I feel better. And it was that knowing that she connected with him, knowing that he's there. And she said, I wanted to leave the planet for a long time since he's been gone. And I've been holding on because I keep thinking, okay, I'm going to see him. And she said, now I get that I am going to see him. And yet there are other things I'm still here to do. What a beautiful thing to say, right? She got that. And she said, so my daughters told me to come here. And I was like, oh, I didn't know that because I don't know who's connected to who. She said, and she reminded me of their readings. And I said, oh, okay, now I know. And she said, I was very skeptical. And she said, I just want to tell you, I feel better and thank you. So she left. I heard later from one of her daughters who said to me, I don't know what the content was of the reading. Mom said she would tell us later, but I want to let you know, she went back to school. She had one or two credits left to finish her degree. She finished it. She went into social work, and she is focusing on bereavement. And she also repaired her marriage and put away all of her son's things. She didn't get rid of them, but she put them in a place that's not a shrine as a daily reminder to the rest of the family. It's in her heart now. And I know she will tell eventually, or she did tell her children what her experience was. But one of the things that he really said was, you're depriving your daughters of a relationship. And that was really impactful for me, because and going back to being on that plane and thinking I have this choice, I recognized that I can honor this life because it mattered. And I think that's how I feel about Shanann. I feel her life mattered. And I feel that there was so much love in her heart that I feel like, that there's that purpose that comes in of like not forgetting people. And really looking at how we are here to do something. And I know that I've gone on a little bit, Michele, but I want to just say to you that, I really feel that there is no accident that you stumbled into this information. And I hope that by my telling you the story, it gives you some insight and a little bit of comfort. And something that's really coming through to me is, that love is just, it's never going to go away. It's never going to go away. And I know what I want to say too. One final thing about this. Somebody then said to me later, I remember we were out, a bunch of us were out, and I had a fun social life a little bit in the early days in California. And there were a group of us out, and one person kind of said, I was telling the story without telling. I just said, wow, this kid came through to me and it was really powerful. And he said, what if it's all crap? I mean, what if you're just misleading these people? And I said, what if I am? And he just looked at me, and I said, that woman walked away and her life changed. See, I obviously don't feel I am, but the point is that, when people kind of want to debunk this stuff, it's like, but it helped somebody. I think that for me, where readings take a tone or a turn that's not good is when addictive behavior begins. That's why I don't like to do the does he love me readings? Because it's like, no, honey, you need a therapist, but this kind of thing that you're talking about, Michele, and I want to just say this is soul pain. This is deep soul pain, and I want to validate it for you. And I hope that in somewhere in this video, I know I've talked about a lot of different things, but I hope somewhere in this video, it gives you some insight into and some validation for your own experience. And I'm certainly not trying to give you any kind of advice, because I'm not in a position to do that. I'm just in a position to share what I learned from that. And, I ended up writing a memoir called The Veteran's Daughter. And right now my agent is sending it out, but it hasn't been published yet. But it really has to do with that time and what that person taught me. And so there is that kind of feeling that, there is something that in you that is not yet written. It's not, the chapter's not closed because you're still here. And there is something that your son really is there to still guide you toward. So I would really encourage you to do some journaling, get close to some people who've lost children, just to find that kind of validation and that kind of, I know, because people who haven't been through it can't give you a lot. All I can tell you is my experience with this woman whose life was really at peace. And see, I believe that it's about finding peace. I think that ultimately this work is about finding internal peace so we can share universal peace. I hope that helps you. I'm sending you lots and lots of love, and just I feel that pain and I feel that love that you have with your son. And I want to tell you and just validate, this, but that's always going to be there. Oh, girl, much love. I hope this taps into something for you. Bye for now.